Today I want to show you how I made this dress. I'm using a cotton fabric I found at a fabric shop, about 3 meters. I didn't use up all of that, but I'm glad I got that amount just in case I made a mistake. And I can always use the fabric for something else. But today I will be using this pattern that I found for very cheap. Digging through a bunch of different sewing patterns, and this one caught my eye. I really like the puff sleeves, and I'm not really one to wear empire waist, but I think this one turned out really nice. So it's the style 4030. It's a size 12, and I cut this out just kind of willy-nilly. It did end up being a bit big, so I did end up taking in some bits here and here, but at the end of it, it really fits quite well, so just, it's fine. So yeah, let's get on to sewing.
Starting off with cutting out the fabric, I have mine on the fold, cutting out the back piece. I also have the neck facing here and the front 2 bodice pieces. Out the skirt pieces, there were 2 front pieces and 2 back pieces. And lastly, cutting out the sleeve pieces. Next up is to create the darts on the back piece. I've marked out the darts on the wrong side of the fabric and then pinning these together to create the small little darts at the bottom of the back piece. Sewing these in place, starting at the base and tapering off at the top of the dart, and do a nice little hand knot with the remaining threads. Okay, so that's the 2 darts in place. This pattern calls for another 2 darts at the shoulders. Pinning that down and sewing that. And here's how it looks.
Here I have my 2 side backs right sides together, and I'm sewing the center back, which is along this edge, and I will be finishing the edges with an overlocker.
The back skirt patterns are now joined. Join the back bodice to this back skirt piece, right sides together. Sewing along the curve, and here's what the back piece looks like. Here are my 2 front pieces, and I'm sewing a rather big dart at the bottom of these pieces. Next, I want to lay each bodice piece on one of the skirt front pieces, pinning that right sides together as before, and doing the same on the other one. We'll sew those separately. Next, I want to overlock the center front of each piece. And now we want to lay both pieces on top of each other, pin them down the center front. And because we're adding a zip to the top of the dress, we want to do a basting stitch to this point, and then regular stitch all the way down the rest of the skirt. I didn't show this bit, but I unpicked those stitches to that point, and then pinned my zip in place and sewed it down. Here I am sewing my zipper in place. I positioned my zipper about 1 inch away from the top edge of the bodice, just so I can have room to put my facing on and a little closure as well. After installing the zip, stitch the shoulder seam. Here I have attached all my facing pieces together, overlocked the edges, and I'm just turning up the long bottom edge to create a nice hem for the facing. Now I've pinned my neck facing to my neckline. I've also left a little bit of fabric to later on fold away and hand stitch down to make it look nice and clean and finished later on. After sewing that in place, I am understitching, which is pulling the seam to the facing and stitching that on the facing. Once that's done, I am pinning along the sides of the skirt and bodice to stitch them together, and on the other side as well. So now I'm looking at the dress on my mannequin and I'm realizing at this point that it is way too big. So the first thing I decided to do was take in about a ½ centimeter at the sides. Here I decided I really wanted to take it in the center front, which meant taking out the zipper, taking in about 1 centimeter there, and sewing the zipper back in. I quickly went ahead and did that following all the previous steps, and here's what it looks like. Swiftly moving on to the sleeves, I am creating 2 basting stitches along the top of the sleeve between the markings, so creating long basting stitches which I'll then gather into the sleeve opening, creating that other line. Stitching up the side seam. And here I have roll hemmed the bottom of the sleeve, stitching that in place, and I am careful to leave an opening because I want to feed through a piece of elastic to scrunch it all up and make it quite poofy. So here I have my elastic and safety pin to feed it through. Reaching the end, I am going to hand sew a couple stitches to join the elastics. Once that's done, I've tucked them away in the sleeve and I am just machine stitching the opening closed again. Okay, so once all those steps are done, you have your own little poofy sleeves. Really cute. I can't wait to see how these look on the dress. I went ahead and pinned right side to right side the sleeve in place, matching all the seams and little markings, gathering it as well to fit it and ease it into the armhole. And I'm always very careful when stitching sleeves in place. I'm always scared I'm going to snag a piece of fabric, so make sure everything's lying smooth while you're stitching. Don't catch anything, especially when you're overlocking, because you can, cut into the fabric if you're not careful. The finishing touches: roll hemmed the skirt, hand sewed the hook and eye. I hand sewed the facing down at the center front. And here's how she turned out. I think it's a really, really cute autumn inspired dress that I'll get a lot of wear of in these coming months.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this little dress, and I hope you like it as much as I do, and maybe think about making something similar for yourself. If you want to see more of me, don't forget to subscribe. Take care. Bye.